We come on to crying for Imam Hussain. Another misconception. So don't cry for Imam Hussain. It was a historical event that happened many years ago. Why do you guys still cry? Our fourth Imam was asked, Ibn Rasulullah, Karbala was like, 30 years ago? Why do you still cry? So the Imam replied, as I mentioned on the second night, the Quran in Surah Yusuf says that Yusuf was separated from Yaqub. He was still alive. But just because he was separated from Yaqub alayhi salam, he cried so much that the whiteness in his eyes, or the black iris pupil in his eye, turned white, and Nabi Yaqub became blind from crying. And then Imam Sajjad alayhi salam said what to his companion? He said, he wasn't dead. Yusuf was alive. He was just separated. I've seen 18 of my Yusufs massacred in front of my eyes. And you are saying, why do you still cry? We will cry. We will mourn. And the Ahlul Bayt did. And in terms of crying for Imam Hussain alayhi salam, also you say, you should only cry for 3 days. How did they say to us? That's it. Baskar. Okay, so when the Prophet lost his sons, we call him Abul Qasim, right? He had a son called Qasim. He also had a son called Ibrahim. They both died in infancy. Pick up the books of history, the Prophet cried for them. When his wife Khadija salamullah alayha passed away, he cried for her. When Abu Talib alayhi salam and Abdul Muttalib, his grandfather alayhi salam, died, he cried for them. When his uncle Hamza was shaheed in the battle of Uhud, the Prophet not only cried for Hamza alayhi salam, but he ordered the companions to cry for Hamza as well. Then he came to the women in Medina and said, you cry over your own dead. Is there nobody to cry for my uncle Hamza? He then ordered them to cry for Hamza. Crying is a human emotion. You can't suppress your own emotions. Crying is natural. When grief occurs, you cry. But when the grandson of the Prophet is killed, we will cry till the day of judgment. Zaratan Nahiya. Imam al-Zamana alayhi salam says what? He says, oh my grandfather Aba Abdullah, I will continue to cry blood, not of tears. I will cry not tears, but I will cry blood for you, Ya Aba Abdullah, for the way you were killed. It's been over 1200 years that our Imam has been in occultation. Every day he cries for Aba Abdullah, not tears of water, but tears of blood. The animals mourned Aba Abdullah. There's a narration from Muhammad Sadiq alayhi salam when he says that keep pigeons in your house. Pigeons, keep them in your house. Why Ibn Rasulullah? He said because when a pigeon talks, it curses the killers of Aba Abdullah. So we will continue to cry. There's many examples of crying within the Quran. There's many examples of prophets crying. Nabi Adam alayhi salam, when he lost his son, he cried so much. Then they say, don't hit yourselves. He hit his thighs with his hand so much that the flesh deteriorated and you could see bone. This is Nabi Adam alayhi salam. Nabi Yaqub cried until he went blind. All the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mourned. All the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grieved. Quran in chapter 51, Surah Dhariyat, verse 29, says that the wife of Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam, Sarah, when she was told that she's about to give birth to a baby boy, she was an old lady. So what did she say? In the Quran it says that she began to strike her face viciously. Hit her face. Physically started slapping her face. Allah didn't condemn this in the Quran. Allah didn't say what she did was wrong. Allah didn't say, what she did was something that's condemned. Don't do it. He even mentioned it in the Quran. And also, if something happens in front of a prophet and that prophet remains quiet, it becomes a sunnat of that prophet. So matam, azadari, mourning, self-harm, it's a sunnat of Nabi Ibrahim. It's a sunnat of Nabi Adam. Even in their books is written that the Prophet of Islam, when in grief, used to strike his thighs. Amir al-Mu'mineen, when Sayyida Zahra died, he striked his chest and his thighs. Imam Hussain alayhi salam, when Amir al-Mu'mineen died, he striked his chest and his thighs. Aba Abdullah, when Imam Hussain passed away, he did the same thing. And all the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt struck their thighs and their chests. So the permissibility of self-harm is there. How you do it, that's up to you. Once you've established that it's allowed, from the Quran in chapter 51 verse 29, from the prophets of Allah, from the Ahlul Bayt, now that you know that matam is permissible, how you do it, that depends on where you're from and your culture and your family and your background. So crying as well. They say that throughout many examples, Rasulullah cried for Imam Hussain the day he was born. The moment Imam Hussain came into this world, Fatima Salamullah alayha gave Aba Abdullah to Rasulullah, peace be upon him, in Islam, and he began to cry. She asked, why did you cry? Oh father, he said, Jibreel just told me that this grandson of mine will be massacred on the day of Karbala, on the day of Ashura in the land of Karbala. He'll be thirsty for 3 days. He will say, Allah hal min nasirin yansuruna, no one will reply. That's why we say, Labbaik ya Hussain today. They will say, oh Imam, if we were there, we would have sacrificed ourselves. He called out, is there anybody to help me? Nobody responded. And that's when Imam Ali, Rasulullah and Sayyida all cried for Aba Abdullah. Even when Imam Hussain alayhi salam was passing away on his deathbed, Imam Hussain came up to him and Imam Hussain began crying. So Imam Hussain said to him, oh my brother Hussain, why are you crying? He says, because of, look at your state. You're in the state of poison. You know, the books say 60 times they tried to poison Imam Hussain. The final poison is what killed him, but 60 times they tried to poison him. Imam Hussain said to him, oh my brother Hussain, please don't cry. Doesn't matter what happens to me. Why? La yawmaka yawmik ya Aba Abdullah. There is no day like your day, O Aba Abdullah. So they all cried. And even the companions cried for Imam Hussain. Ibn Abbas, Anas ibn Malik, Zayd ibn Arqam, and the wife of Rasulullah, Salama. May Allah be pleased with her. The loyal wife of Rasulullah, she even cried for Aba Abdullah. So crying is permissible, matam is permissible, self-flagellation is permissible. We've got nexus from the Quran and Hadith. Everybody cried for Aba Abdullah, and tonight we will also cry for Aba Abdullah. And until the day of judgment, we say, Abad Wallah ya Zahra, maninsa Husayna. We swear to you, O Zahra, we will never forget your Hussain. This is our promise to say, the Fatima. So crying is permissible.